hello, I hope you're having a great day today. Today is going to be a little bit of a chit-chatty type of video, and I'm going to be talking about how I learned English, which is the most asked question in the comments. And the short answer is that my mom's American, so I grew up speaking English at home, but I think any mixed race person who's grown up in a bilingual environment would know this, but it's pretty rare for a bilingual kid to have the same level in both of their languages. Usually one is weaker than the other. And for me, I've never lived in the States before. I grew up going to very normal Japanese public schools. So obviously my Japanese was much better than my English. So in this video, I'm gonna just talk about my journey with English, which is way messier than my journey with Spanish. And I wanna make it somewhat logical, like the steps that I took, how I studied, how I overcame the insecurities and anxiety of speaking English. So yeah, I hope that if you're learning English, then you can take away something. It's probably definitely more of like an intermediate to advanced learner type of thing. First, I want to talk a little bit about my English, like my level of English. I always grew up speaking English in the house, so I didn't really have problems listening and speaking, but up to like the 10th grade, I could barely read. I couldn't read and I couldn't spell. And since I only spoke English with my mom, I had a vocabulary of like a 7-year-old and I was 15. And my mom did try her best to teach me how to read English. Like I knew the alphabet, she tried to get me to read these different sort of English books for kids, but unfortunately it didn't really work because I was a child and no 8-year-old is gonna come home from school and be like, hey mom, I wanna keep up my Duolingo streak. And also in Japan, we don't start learning English in school until the 7th grade. So we have a late start. To be fair, I think it's changing right now. I think they're making it earlier, but that's a very recent change. At least when I was growing up, we started in 7th grade. So throughout middle school, I did learn English in school, but it was very, very low level. And I basically just had to make sure that I knew the spelling of all the words that we were doing, and I was good to go. But it definitely didn't really help me improve my English. I still read really, really slowly. My vocabulary didn't expand at all throughout those years. But I remember I was always so nervous about speaking English. Like the only person that I didn't get nervous speaking English was with my mom. And if it was any other person, I remember even I didn't like talking with my grandma. My American grandma, I avoided talking with her on the phone because I would get so much anxiety. And we used to go to an English speaking church, so every week I had to talk to people in English who the kids went to international schools, and I hated it so much. And the thing was that I had good pronunciation. If you just hear my pronunciation, you think that I'm a native. So people just wouldn't expect that I had trouble with English. And at the time, I was just scared to show that I didn't understand, and I felt really deeply embarrassed about it. And now looking back, I'm kind of like, you know, well, you grew up in a Japanese school. Why would anybody expect you to have perfect English? But at the time, I didn't know anybody who was kind of in my situation who was bilingual but going to a normal Japanese school. So I didn't have anybody to compare myself with to feel normal. And I knew that it was my fault because I was the one who wasn't studying. So I constantly felt like I was dumb and lazy when it came to English. And I'm telling you all of this because in conclusion, I had a very deep, strong desire to want to improve my English. And now I kind of want to go into like tips of how I studied, how I improved my English. And before we go on, there's basically 2 categories that I'm going to be talking about, and one is how to incorporate English as much as possible in your daily life, and the other one is how to put yourself into situations where you kind of force yourself to learn. And I really think that a combination of those 2 are the fastest way to go about language learning, and that's why I'm so happy to announce that this video is sponsored by Lingoda, which is the biggest online language school in Europe, and they have this really tempting campaign for all my fellow procrastinator kings and queens. So the campaign is called the Sprint Challenge, and it's a thing where you're challenged to take 60 lessons in 2 months. So that's 1 lesson for every day for 2 months. And if you complete all the lessons, if you actually attend all the lessons, they give you 100% cash back. 100% cash back. Or if that's kind of too much for you, then they have a little more chilled out version of it that challenges you to do 30 lessons in 2 months, and if you complete it, you'll get a 50% cash back. And I love this challenge so much because the stakes are actually high enough to keep you motivated. And I took a Spanish lesson the other day on Lingoda, and I can genuinely assure you that the quality is there. The teachers are all certified language teachers, the materials are all really well thought out and produced, and the classes are always in really small groups, so you're going to be really involved in the class. And lessons take place 24/7 through Zoom. So even if you live in a weird time zone like I do in Japan, you will not have any trouble finding a class that will fit your schedule. So as long as you can manage to squeeze in 60 minutes each day to take one of these classes, then you're good to go. And they offer courses in English, business English, French, German, and Spanish. And so if you love a challenge and that sounds interesting to you, make sure to click the link down below for more information and use my code EMMY2022 to get 20 euros or $25 off your deposit. And thanks Lingoda for sponsoring this video. I think the first kind of shift happened when I was 14 or maybe 13, and it was when my brother, he gave me a Taylor Swift CD for my birthday or Christmas or something. And up to that point, I only listened to Japanese music. My mom would only listen to Christian music, so I had no idea of any Western artists. So my brother gave me a Taylor Swift CD and I really liked it. And that's when I discovered kind of the English music world. I just started listening to music in English, and it started with that, and I gradually started to make my entertainment world or internet world into English. It's like I would learn the lyrics to a song, there's a couple words that I don't know, I would look that up and learn the word, and that's kind of how it started really. Like it started with like discovering some pop artists. And at this point, or like definitely in high school, I don't really watch Japanese entertainment anymore. Like my YouTube feed has always been just English. I kind of forgot about it, like why I don't really watch Japanese entertainers that much, but I remembered recently, I was like, that was like an actual conscious decision that I made to like quit watching Japanese stuff and kind of like tap into the English world. So yeah, I think that was the first big thing that I did. And the next important thing that happened to me was that I got into high school. And my high school, it's a Japanese public school, but it was kind of like, it had a weird curriculum. It was kind of more international. Like half of the students were Japanese, normal Japanese, but there were a lot of mixed race kids. There were a lot of Japanese people who used to live abroad. There were a lot of Koreans, some Chinese people, and people from other nationalities. And then in high school, I like made friends who spoke English, and I started using English with people other than my mom. And I also feel like it was really good because for the first time I met people who were also mixed race, couldn't speak one of their languages really well. And I think there I realized that I wasn't dumb, I wasn't lazy, but I was just normal. And I stopped being afraid or too self-conscious about not understanding something in English, and I could always ask what something meant. And people would never be surprised that I didn't understand English. People were surprised that I never grew up in the States. For me, that was a time when I stopped feeling so nervous about speaking English. And then the third thing that I did was that, so in my high school, we had a lot of English classes, and the one thing that I did was that I actually did the homework, which is like, okay, but yeah, that was the first time where I started like reading and writing English, and that was something that was actually challenging for me, so that was good. And also, I guess it's a tip, a very widely known tip, but I changed my phone settings into English. And I remember for like the first year, I kept on changing it back to Japanese just because it was so hard to like understand. I would get frustrated that I had to read so much English, which is crazy to think about now because I have my phone in Spanish now, and English and Japanese are kind of like the same thing for me now. Okay, the next one is actually a tip. I started like reading stuff for fun in English. And a tip is to just read something that's interesting for you, that's fun for you. Don't go on to read Jane Austen. Don't go reading all those sophisticated stuff. Read something that's a guilty pleasure for you. Read something like YA fictions or manga, celebrity news magazines, or like fan fiction or that kind of stuff. Don't read like the best literature piece of all time or anything. I feel like just getting yourself used to reading in a language and enjoy the process and read something that's long, I think that's really important. I remember that I read The Hunger Games, like the trilogy, in like 10 days, and I couldn't believe how fast I finished it because it was so interesting. I just like kept on reading it for 10 days. And my tip for like reading a lot is to not look up vocabulary all the time, because there's going to be a lot of words that you don't know. And I realized after a while that it's exhausting and it's demotivating when you try and look up every single word. That's not fun. For my vocabulary, okay, so obviously throughout all of this, my vocabulary was kind of expanding, but I feel like what really like kind of pushed me to another level was when I took this one English exam when I was in my senior year of high school. It's Eikenjinkyu in Japanese. I don't know what the level is. Maybe it's like upper B2. lower C1, and I tried to learn all the words for it. Like I got myself a little book, spent a couple of months just trying to learn all the words for this specific exam. And that helped me a lot. That really expanded my vocabulary. And after that, I started to being able to understand news in English, you know, just like CNN or something. And before that, I literally could not understand when it was like news outlets, like news on TV and newspapers. But I remember after taking this exam and like learning all the words for this exam, it kind of unlocked a lot for me, and I could talk more kind of like an adult. And so this is in high school, and I feel like university helped me so much with my writing. I do English literature, and I didn't choose it because I wanted to improve my English. I chose it because I just like English literature. But yeah, because of my major, I just had to write a lot of academic papers in English, and that really helped me. And I just really need to credit my college and my major for that. And so yeah, that's kind of how I got to this point in my life. I still definitely feel like my Japanese is better, and there's definitely more to improve in my English. And like even when I'm editing, I can see sometimes that I'm making mistakes while speaking English, but I'm no longer insecure with my English. And I would just say that I'm from Japan, so my English isn't necessarily native level. But yeah, I'm really proud how much I came with my English throughout the years. And yeah, that's my story with English. I hope that this could help you guys in any way. And yeah, for some reason the recording just ends there in the middle of my outro, so I'm just gonna continue. And while we're here, since I always do a lot of resource videos for my Spanish stuff, I think it's only fair to give you some resources in English as well, if any of you are learning English. And since we're on the YouTube platform, I'm just gonna give you a couple of my favorite YouTubers who I really like. And I've done this kind of video in Spanish as well, but I think it's really important to have channels that, you know, aren't only about languages, about learning English, like channels that are teaching you English, but just like normal channels, you know, just like channels for entertainment. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of channels that aren't necessarily Mr. Beast type of famous, but yeah, I really enjoy them, and I hope you guys do too. Okay, the first one is Damon Dominique. He's American. He does like travel and language type of stuff. Second one is Mike's Mike. He's Australian. He is hilarious. He talks about pop culture and reality shows. Another of my favorite is Ahis Ilazobi. He's Nigerian, living in the UK. He does the randomest stuff ever, but he's like my favorite YouTuber. Another of my favorite YouTubers is called KDU. She's American. She's kind of more like a lifestyle YouTuber, I guess, and I love her editing. Actually, all the YouTubers that I just mentioned, they have outstanding editings, and I love it. Another one that I wrote down is Khadija. She's an American living in Canada. She does commentary type of stuff. It's really educational, but I really love how she presents these topics. And another of my favorite commentary channels is called Tiffany Ferg. She talks more about kind of like stuff on the internet. And we've got a couple more. I really love Danny Gonzalez. His videos are basically like commentary and comedy. And if you like his type of content, then you'll definitely like Drew Gooden and Curtis Connor as well. It's an ongoing joke that they're basically the same people, but they're pretty famous. And I love this guy called Matt Colbo. He's Canadian. He does comedy skits. And I also love this guy called Struthless. He's Australian, and he has the best personal development channel I've ever come across on this platform. Period. And the last one I wrote down is a guy called Jack Edwards. He's British and he talks about books. Again, that's it. I hope that it served you well. And yeah, for real now, it's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys have a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you are. And thank you, Lingoda, for sponsoring this video. Make sure to go check them out, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye-bye.